U.S. debt has hit an all-time high. It keeps growing, and it poses a severe threat to our economy and to our individual prosperity, and it's going to affect us all in so many ways, and not in a positive way. No matter if you're 20 years old or you're 60 years old, the debt is going to be a killer for the future. I'm going to tell you what it means for you, for your family, and for your future. Let's break this thing down. Hey, welcome back. My name's Ethan. I like to do videos on investing, wealth, finance, and that's what this video is about. Not in a good way. This one's about debt and the dangers of debt, specifically the U.S. Government debt, what we as a country have incurred and where we're at, and the dangers that it basically signals or poses to our overall economy, and the fact that it could be one of the things that kicks off or at least makes the next recession a complete and utter disaster. If you haven't been watching the debt clock, we are at an enormous amount, a record all-time debt level. I think we just passed the debt clock here. We got $23 trillion is our national debt. It's just absolutely insane. I mean, it's like the numbers I'm looking at. You can find this all for yourself at usdebtclock.org. They've got a real-time, basically a display where you can see all these different stats on not only the national debt, but how much it breaks down, per individual, per household. So let me read you a couple numbers right now. The U.S. debt right now per each individual citizen. That's man, woman, child, right? That's your kids, right? That's your grandparents. That's you. Per citizen is nearly $70,000. That's a lot. $70,000. Now, we know that not everybody is a tax-paying citizen, so it's like kids aren't, people who are unemployed or the lower economic spectrum, they don't pay much, if any, taxes. But debt per taxpayer is but $186,000. Imagine that. If you have a job right now and you are paying taxes, your share of the national debt is over $180,000. How in the world are you expected to pay that off? You probably have a mortgage. You probably got a loan on your car. You might even have credit card debt, student loan debt, whatever you're dealing with right now. Can you imagine getting a tax bill for $186,000 right now? And by the way, that's the number right now. It keeps the interest on that keeps accruing. So just imagine that. That's absolutely insane. I think this bodes a lot of danger for the future. I think the national debt that we currently have, as well as what we probably will have in the future, in the near future, is just going to be absolutely disastrous. I don't understand how we're ever going to get out of this. And it blows my mind that we as a country have allowed our government to run up such massive debts. And it's not just in the past couple of years. We've had this for quite a while. Obviously, if you've been watching the news in the past couple of years, the economy, the debt has gone up, has skyrocketed in the past decade or so. We've printed so much money, and we've just been in a bad situation. We've let our debt run up, but we have not only the debt that's on the books right now, we have a ton of unfunded liabilities when it comes to the Social Security system, when it comes to pensions, when it comes to a whole bunch of things that are going to cause a lot of problems. We are in over our heads right now, and I don't understand how we let this happen. If you run your personal life like this with your personal finances, you are setting yourself up for financial ruin. And the way I see it, this is going to lead to a lot of pain and suffering for everybody in the U.S., no matter what economic class you're in right now, whether you are poor, lower middle class, upper middle class, excuse me, it doesn't matter. It is going to affect you big time, because ultimately the only thing we can do to pay down our debt, we can do two things. We can either increase taxes on everyone, because that's a shit ton of money. Like I said, $186,000 per taxpayer. That's not all coming from the 1% people. That's going to hit us, each and every one of us, in our pocketbooks in a big way. And you're not going to be able to pay that off. Everybody's not going to. If you got a tax bill next year for that, Most people can't pay that off. And with interest accruing on that debt, that just is going to be crippling for so many years. We're going to pass that on to our kids and our grandkids. And unless something changes in a major way, we are never going to get out of debt. It's debt. If you've been in credit card debt, if you've had student loan debt, which most people have, you know it can be crippling, not only financially, but it can just be a real drain on your mental state because it holds you down. I really think that the debt, most debt, consumer debt is very dangerous, and we aren't taught about money, and that's why people get into debt. And a lot of us can't control our spending. We want stuff before we can actually afford it, so people go into debt, which I think is a really bad idea. And you should try to avoid it at all costs. If you're in debt, if you've got credit card debt, student loan debt, car loans, you should try to pay those off because the amount of money you're going to save on just the interest alone is going to be just incredible. And the faster you can pay off your mortgage, the more money you'll be able to put back into your own pockets, into your savings accounts, into your investments, and not pay to a bank. Excuse me, I got to have some water. I'm kind of getting a sore throat today. Okay, so the debt is a huge problem. It's just going to keep getting bigger over time. The other thing that we can do other than raise taxes is print money. Now, the government, or specifically the Federal Reserve, has already been doing this pretty big time. You probably remember, if you are old enough, if you watched the news back in 2007, 2008, when the great financial crisis was getting underway, we did what was called quantitative easing. And that was a really nice term basically for money printing. The Federal Reserve basically printed a lot of money out of thin air and added it to our money supply. And by doing that, they were able to bail out the banks and inject more money into the system to keep our economy afloat. And a lot of people think that lessened the negative effects of the last financial crisis. The problem with doing that is when your country prints too much money, you can get into a position where the money of the country is actually worthless. And every time they print more and more money, it becomes worth a little less each time they do that, because you can't just create money out of thin air. Money has to be backed up by some real tangible value, some real tangible assets. When you just print money, carelessly, you basically reduce the purchasing power, reduce the value of the money that everyone has in their savings account, in their checking account, and it buys less and less over time. So it's a real dangerous thing to do. And right now, in the past, up to this point, when the Federal Reserve prints money out of thin air, all that money basically goes to the big banks and the corporations. So it's not really benefiting the normal citizen out there, and that all it's doing to the citizen is hurting them, because it's decreasing the value of their savings and of their investments when money is printed. But that's another way to solve the national debt. We just print a bunch of money, we pay off our debt. But in doing so, we put this country at great financial risk. Other countries aren't going to want to lend money to us. Other countries aren't going to want to invest in us. It's a real problem. So it's probably going to be a combination of those two things. I always tell people, people always worry about Social Security not being there, not paying out when they get to retirement age. And I think it's a real concern. I understand that, because Social Security itself has been raided. The Social Security funds have been spent by the politicians on a lot of things that they shouldn't have done that, but they did. And now with the demographic shift, which I'll do another video on, we are in a position where we have more people actually taking Social Security than we actually have workers putting money into the system, which is not how you want things to be. And it doesn't lead you down to a path of sustainability in terms of being able to make payments, especially when you've raided the coffers on Social Security and there's not all the money that we need in there right now. But I don't think anybody's ever going to miss out on their Social Security check, because the government can just print money and make sure checks go out in the mail. But when they do that, that decreases the value of the U.S. money. Every dollar you have is worth a little bit less, and it just shifts the problem. It masks the problem. It doesn't really solve the problem. But we can do that to get rid of the national debt. We can increase taxes, and we can print money. We can get some by increasing tariffs, things like that. but that's really not going to take care of the bulk. Ultimately, we're going to have to pay this debt off, or just inflate our currency by printing more money to actually get this debt back to zero. It's absolutely insane to me. Globally, we have like huge amounts of debt around the world. Every country basically is affected by this. A lot of most countries are printing money. They are deep in debt. I really don't understand how we got here, how we are allowed ourselves to get there. I think, a big part of the problem is people always want stuff for free. We all want stuff for free. We like free stuff, right? We want better healthcare, better education, better roads and bridges, better stuff in life. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when there's not money to pay for it and we are screaming for it, we want it. The politicians want to do what we're asking for, right? They want to give us what we're asking for because they want to get reelected. That's their job. And when they do that, they have to make a decision. They internally, they might be having discussions going, this stuff is crazy. We don't have money for this stuff, but people are clamoring for it. So we have to do something. So they basically take out a loan, put us into debt, and do the things that we want them to do. And we never really fully understand the cost of things, at least at an individual scale, because even if we hear numbers as to what something's going to cost, it's really abstract. It's like, X number of $1 billion or X number of $1 trillion to do something like to pay off student loans or to give everybody free medical care. And so those numbers, when they're presented to us, are really abstract. They're never broken down to here's what it's going to cost each and every individual, each and every taxpayer, each and every household. It's absolutely insane. Again, I said the U.S. national debt right now is over $180,000 per taxpayer. That is absolutely insane. If you have a household where you and your spouse work and you got a couple kids, you got two taxpayers in the house. So your household debt is nearly $370,000. That think about that. That's probably more than your house is worth. That's more than the average house is worth in the U.S. That is your household's share of the U.S. national debt. And that national debt is incurring interest on a daily basis. So it keeps going up. So how are you going to pay for that? Ultimately, you probably can't pay for that in taxes. It's too much. The government is going to have to print money when we run into troubles with the U.S. debt. And I really think the debt is going to cause some kind of financial crisis, some kind of recession, probably more than a recession, probably an economic crisis, pretty big proportions. When we get to a point where other governments, other countries don't trust our currency, don't trust the strength of it, they see that we are deep in debt, we are going to be in just a world of hurt. People are going to want to lend us money. And when you get in that position, nobody wants to lend you money, nobody wants to buy your treasury bonds. You have to, sell them internally to other banks inside the system. That's what the government started to do just recently, actually. So you're printing money out of thin air, kind of artificially injecting money into the system, and you're buying it yourself. It's crazy. It's monopoly money. Like you can just take out a piece of paper and say, I'm going to give myself $1 million. And that's essentially what the Federal Reserve is doing. That's what the politicians are, expecting. They're approving that. And the people want stuff. And so that's what we're doing. We're basically printing funny money. And this is not going to end well for any of us. It's going to result in much higher taxes, whether it's income taxes or estate taxes, wealth taxes for everybody, or what do they call it? There's a term they use, austerity is what they started using in Europe a couple of years ago. Austerity is basically where you start seeing reduced services. So you see reduced police, reduced fire protection, reduced educational services, reduced medical services, reduced government services. So that's called austerity. They also do things like they reduce pensions, they reduce Social Security payments, and austerity measures to pay off debt. And they've done that in Europe. We're probably going to have that in the U.S. I don't see any way around it. You can do austerity, you can do tax increases, you can do money printing. But either way, whether they choose one of those things or all three of those things, it is going to end badly. We are going to end up getting hurt. And ultimately, unfortunately, it always hurts people at the lower end of the economic spectrum all the time, because the ultra wealthy can afford to take the hit, right? But the middle class and the poor can't. and so it affects everybody negatively, but I think people at the lower end of the economic spectrum get nailed even harder than anybody else. So I think this is a huge issue. In my opinion, the only way to really hedge your bets or protect against this type of scenario is, in my opinion, probably to invest in precious metals. And the reason for that is because precious metals have long been, seen as and have acted as basically a hedge against economic crisis. They are essentially, they're like an asset of last resort. When everything goes to hell, when shit hits the fan in an economy or in a fiat money system, which is what we have in the US, gold serves as basically as an anchor, as something that will provide you with a solid store of wealth when everything else goes to hell. And other than precious metals, maybe tangible assets like farmland, like real estate, actually owning them, all right, would help with this, because the value of those things would probably go up. But the tax burden on those things would actually go up too. So it's hard to say how to protect yourself. I'd say precious metals are probably your best bet, just because when you get in a situation, especially where the government is printing money like crazy, gold especially can be a real good store of value. Silver as well, to a lesser extent, but gold has a long history, thousands of years of history as being essentially a store of wealth and a store of value that can outlast times of economic turmoil. So something to think about. I've got other videos on gold and why I think it's important and why I think everyone should invest in it, as well as videos about how to go about acquiring that in your total investment portfolio. And when I say portfolio, I'm not talking about the stock market, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. I'm talking about your entire asset class, all of your investments, no matter where they are. The precious metals are probably the only way to hedge against this bet. Anyway, I think it's just, I wanted to bring it to your attention if you haven't already been aware of the debt, the national debt. I know we've got a lot of issues with corporate debt, personal debt, credit card debt, student loan debt. We have a ton of problems with debt. Honestly, we all need to take personal responsibility for our spending habits. And then we need to basically enforce those same principles and tell our politicians they need to stay within their budgetary limits as well. And they can't just go crazy and allow a whole bunch of money to be printed to fund things that we actually can't afford right now. So we need to have a little bit more, I guess, the conservative spending when it comes to our personal finances and our country's finances. So anyway, a quick update. I know this is not a positive, happy one, but at least I think, the only positive side to this, I think that can come out of this is my advice to you to figure out ways to counter this. I believe that precious metals are a good way to do that. Probably also tangible assets like farmland, like real estate, things that hold their value. They have real value. No matter what the dollar value is, they have real value because there's something real that people need. You need farmland to feed people. You need real estate so people can have homes. And precious metals, like I said, especially gold, have a long, long track record of providing safe haven in crazy economic times. So those are three things to take away from this that hopefully give you a little bit of hope as to how you can hedge your bets, how you can protect against the downsides of all this stuff, because it is going to be crippling. Anyway, that's it for this video. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this. I got a lot of other videos on investing, personal growth, wealth, finance, a whole bunch of different things. So if you enjoy this video, please consider subscribing. And I would love it if you gave this video a like. It helps the algorithms basically allow other people to see these videos, and I really appreciate that. I'm getting started with my channel, and it's always a challenging climb from zero to hero, whatever that number is. So I would definitely appreciate that. But until next time, I wish you guys all the best of luck, and I wish you all the best in preparing for economic crises, recessions, all that kind of stuff, because I want you guys to have a secure financial future. I want everybody to have that. So I wish you guys all the best, and I will see you guys soon in the next video. Take care.